asking Gaurav, who was among the first journalists to reach there along with Ashutosh, what the worst thing he saw was. Gaurav, it's a difficult question, I know, but this is war. Most people in their lifetimes, thankfully, can never get close to a conflict. What is the worst thing that you saw there?
The destruction firsthand. We were amongst the first journalists to get to that Nova Music Festival site at Ream. The rotting bodies, unfortunately, and that's a very tough word to use, those bodies were still there. We saw those bodies. I saw those bodies. I saw bullet marks in that camp. I mean, that's where all the music lovers, youngsters, future generation of Israel, they'd come together, and that's where terrorists, they came on hand gliders, and they shot 300 of 3,000 who were there. So that was terrible. Going to kibbutz Biri, going to Nihal Oz, one of the first kibbutz that were targeted by terrorists at a time when the stench of that rotting flesh still there, cars burning, still there. We got there on the 8th, and these were places we got to by 10th and 11th. So it was terrible being there, covering this war at a time when shelling was still happening in a terrible way. In Tel Aviv, you still have about a minute and a half to duck. In Sderot, where I was, you had less than 30 seconds. They were shelling. 30 seconds, you can't even find where the nearest bunker is. So you just lie flat on the ground next to a car or next to any structure that would protect your head and your body, Shiv.
Shweta, you and I traveled together to some of those kibbutzes. I remember the IDF soldiers asking us not to film certain things. But they didn't stop us from seeing those things. Yeah. Some of those things that you and I saw.
The blood on the floor. Remember that particular place where 3 babies were slaughtered. It pains when there are people who question you, why didn't you go to Gaza? So, okay, that's a different story about going to Gaza. The journalists who are in Gaza, who belong to that place, are covering that place. You cannot enter that area. But that does not stop you from questioning those people. Yeah. If you're looking at the babies of Gaza, how are you blind to a baby who's been put into a microwave and killed? Burnt to death, cooked to death rather. How are you blind to that 10-month-old baby who's been taken hostage? Shiv, the worst part when I was present there, the one time when I actually felt really pained was when I saw the families that are sitting in Tel Aviv waiting for their loved ones. The weight in their eyes, the pain in their eyes, the mother of a 3-year-old who's asking me who will be changing his diapers, who's giving him milk.
I think the child aspect of what the 4 of us saw in Israel is absolutely horrifying, and I don't think those images will ever get out of our minds. And the 4 of us happen to be a part of a small group of journalists who saw some of that uncensored footage. Ashu, you also saw some of that footage, but apart from the footage, we also saw it up close. It's a different thing to see it up close. You also saw it, Ashu.
A toddler shoe soaked with blood. Yeah. A back seat where perhaps the family was, trying to escape. Immediately they heard the firing taking place. But then a heavy caliber bullets literally penetrated the back seat, perhaps all around, those blood. That explains that the people, those Hamas group militants, whoever came, they did not even bother to see whether there are women. When there is an attack when the 2 nations fight, 2 groups fight, you attack an army, that's a war. You do not attack women and children, innocent people, but this is what is happening. So, of course, there have been casualties both the side, but remember who started first. Of course, there are people, innocent civilians who died in Gaza, but there are innocent civilians, women, children who have died in Israel. They have been killed, they were targeted. It was a pre-planned. They worked out for months to carry out this exercise, and it was in a planned way. They attacked the innocent civilians, women, elderly people, eliminated literally village after village, kibbutz after kibbutz in the bordering area.
One thing that I want to say repeatedly to all of our viewers, and this is something that has been acknowledged, is that the India Today group's reportage, India Today and Aaj Tak together, has been the most objective, most fair, most 360-degree. Gaurav, you and I both reported from the Palestinian territories. So did you, Shweta. You were on the Jordan border. Ashu, you also visited the Palestinian territories. We showed all aspects of this war because we know as war reporters that in a war, there are no blacks and whites. There are many, many shades of grey. Gaurav, There was so much pressure, as Shweta said. Why aren't you going to Gaza? Why haven't you reporting from Gaza? It's not for a lack of trying. Many of us tried to go to Gaza, used every possible procedure to try and somehow report from Gaza. How did you handle that? Because we did go and represent the Palestinian side to tell the world that this is a crisis. There are two sides, and we're showing you both.
And to the best of our ability. Given the fact that the Israelis control access to Gaza, they were not giving people access to Gaza, so you couldn't report from Gaza unless you lived there.
Yeah.
And the moment we get an opportunity, perhaps we'd be amongst the first, Shweta, Shiv, and
we're still trying.
And we're still trying.
Yeah.
We will try and report from Gaza to the best of our ability the moment we get an opportunity. The point is, we went to the West Bank, and went to the West Bank at a time when tensions were extremely high, when operations were being mounted, where that place was also being bombed, where people were being picked up, and we went into territory that we knew nothing about.
Yes.
Usually when you go into a difficult area, you always hope that you always plan an exit strategy. When we entered, when I entered at least, the West Bank, and when I reached Ramallah, I had no exit strategy. I did not know any local there. I just knew one journalist, trusting that journalist. We got into that place, and you could have been abducted. You could have been taken into some tunnel and hidden in a dungeon, and you wouldn't know what to do. One phone number, and Shweta, if that stops working, you wouldn't know how to get out of that place.
My phone wasn't working there.
And your phone wasn't working.
I trusted my taxi driver.
Yeah.